Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Little Pinay Explorer, and for today's video, I will be talking about the IELTS exam. So basically, this is just a remake of the first video that I made. I think it's time for me to do another video that is ideal for learning and hopefully more examples for you guys. If you have watched my old video already and you understand my techniques and my method with my self-review, then you don't have to watch this video. This will just be talking about the same thing, basically. Same principles, it's just that hopefully better explanation this time. I have techniques that actually help me improve my IELTS score, which could also potentially help you, especially if you don't have the budget to pay for a review center and you just want to do it on your own, do a self-review. As long as you are very much willing to spend all your time reviewing, then this is the perfect video for you. A lot were asking me about my review materials. Where did I get it from? I just went online basically and just downloaded everything that I can get. However, I will be talking about the best resources that I used in every part of the IELTS test. So just keep on watching since I will be mentioning it as I go along. And for those who are curious about my IELTS score, this is my IELTS score. Let's talk about now the first topic, which is the listening part. The listening test lasts for 40 minutes. You will be given the question booklet and answer sheet at the same time. And before the start of the listening, the recording will give you the instructions and an example. So it's a good start for you to calm down, relax a little bit. After all the recordings are played, you have 10 minutes time to check your answers and to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. Now let's go to the examples here. I call it like the simple one because it doesn't have a lot of words, so it's not complicated. And with this type of questions, you can just directly write your answers to your answer sheet because again, it's just simple. Don't include the numbers while you are reading the questions because it makes it confusing sometimes. Fill in the blank questions. This is similar to the first one but a little bit more challenging because the blank is in between several words, and for me personally it makes me confused when I'm reading it and listening to the recording at the same time. So I have this technique where I say blank in every blank space to make more sense and gives more meaning to the question. And again, try to ignore the numbers when reading it in your mind. For example, here if you read it 3 payment is required. So it just doesn't make sense for me. It makes more sense if I say blank payment is required. Instead of reading this, we'll need a 5 license. Read this as we'll need a blank license. Makes more sense, right? Next is matching type. If you see this type of question, you have to remember that you have 30 seconds to check your answers at the end of every section. And again, 10 minutes more after all the recordings are played. This is a question booklet still, so you can write whatever you want. They don't care about that. With this example, the recording goes like, there's a lake in the northwest of the park with the bird hide to the west of it at the end of the path. And that makes number 17, letter A. And this is another example here where the recording goes like, the building where you bought your ticket is the new barn immediately to your right and the car park is to your left. The scarecrow you can see in the car park in the corner beside the main path. So I would usually just write any keywords that the recording is saying. Just keep on writing on the map whatever or wherever the recording leads you. Another example is multiple choice questions. So if you can see, the questions and the choices are just composed of a few words, which makes it simple. For the last question, which asks for 2 choices here, what I do is I just focus on the question. Forget about the choices. Understand what the question is asking, and while the recording is playing, just keep on writing in this side here. After the recording is played, you can just try to connect the ideas of what you have written here and the choices here. Okay, this is another example example of a more complicated type of multiple choice questions, because if you can see, there's just a lot of words in there. You have to listen attentively to the recording, and you have to read the question and understand it, and you have to read the choices and understand it. As normal human beings, we can't really do that all at the same time. That's why I have this technique where I don't read the choices first. I read the question here, try to understand it, and whatever the recording is saying, I write it down in here, everything that is relevant. And then at the end of the recording, you have time again to correlate what you have written here and the choices. Okay. So some important rules here during the actual exam is, first, focus, because the recordings will only be played once. Just keep on checking the other questions, because sometimes you might not realize that it was already mentioned on the recording, that item, and you were still waiting for the answer. And if you miss something, don't worry, it's just one item. Just move on, because it's better to miss one single item than missing all the rest, because you were just panicking and overthinking about one single item, right? The second rule is read the instructions and follow it. If it says no more than 2 words, then you have to stick with it. If you put 3 words in there, even though it's correct, you are still considered wrong because you didn't follow the instructions. To improve your listening skill, the only technique is to keep on practicing, because the more you practice, the more you'll have a good score. The perfect material for this is the Cambridge IELTS books. You can get it and buy it online, or you can get it for free, if you know what I mean. Basically, it's my favorite IELTS material because it is very similar to the actual IELTS test, and the book comes with the recordings as well, so you can really practice, and they will give you the answers at the back of the book. Again, this part is worth 40 items, and if you are constantly hitting a score of 35 and above, then you can move on to the next part. 1 to 2 weeks should be enough to master the listening test. Okay, moving on to the next part, which is the reading. The most boring part, where my brain gets drained in every practice. So brace yourself for this. Unlike the listening part, you will not be given 10 minutes to check your answers and transfer it to the answer sheet. So it's best that if you're doing one question, you have to write the answer real time on the answer sheet, so you don't waste your time. My technique is I always check the questions first, because I have a different strategy for every question type. You are given 1 hour to answer for 40 questions. You need to read 3 long and boring passages, and you have to answer 40 items in a span of 1 hour. If you think 1 hour is enough, sometimes it is not. When I was doing my test, I finished exactly 1 more second left out of that 1 hour precious time. So make sure that you use your time wisely. Now let me show you the different question types in the reading part. The first one, and it's a very common one, is a true, false, or not given question. This is where you answer true if the statement is correct, false if it's incorrect, and not given if it was not given. Sounds simple, right? But actually, it gets more complicated because of the not given option. We tend to confuse the false answer to the not given option. The best tip that I can give you is do not assume anything and do not overthink. My strategy here is to read the questions first. Start with the question number 1 and look for keywords or phrases in the passage. You can just do skimming and scanning, and when you see it, you read the paragraph, check if there's the answer there. And this is one of the examples I have given from my last video. For question number 1, saying Michael Faraday was the first person to recognize Perkins' ability as a student of chemistry. In the passage, it's saying that his talent and devotion to the subject were perceived by his teacher Thomas Hall and not Michael Faraday. So this one is false, and just notice that they use the synonym of the word perceived on the question. There are a lot of like this during the entire test, so it's best to enhance your vocabulary. For question number 2, it's saying Michael Faraday suggested Perkins should enroll in the Royal College of Chemistry. On the passage, they included Michael Faraday there, but Michael Faraday was the only one one who was just giving the lectures. It didn't say here that he suggested Perkin to enroll. It was just saying that, and he later went to attend the Royal College of Chemistry. He just went to the Royal College of Chemistry by his own. Nobody suggested for him to enroll, but he just went for it. That's the only one that was given. So, this is not given. So, don't be confused even though Michael Faraday was mentioned and the Royal College of Chemistry and him enrolling to it, it's not a false. It is just not given. Another example is yes, no, and not given. Basically, it's very similar to the first example, but I noticed that yes, no, and not given is more broad. It's more generic. So there's less keywords that you can do. And I used a different technique here than the true, false, and not given. My strategy is to read the questions first and read the passage as fast as I could with some understanding so I can get the correct answer. Sometimes you will be feeling lost, and if you do, just go back to the questions, read it again, and go back every time you finish a paragraph just to check if you've found the needed information for one of the questions. For question number 25, it's saying the NASA project attracted criticism from some members of the Congress. And this is the part of the passage or the paragraph where the answer is. It's just saying when the US Congress voted NASA for $10 million per year for 10 years to conduct a thorough search for extraterrestrial life. So basically, there was no criticism. The Congress supported the research, but it didn't say anything about criticism. So the answer is not given. For this example, it's easy to say the answer is no because instead of criticizing, they received support from the Congress, right? But the right answer is not given because although it talked about the NASA and the Congress, it did not mention anything about criticism. Again, we just need to stop being assuming to what the writer is saying and do not overthink. So for number 26 saying, if a signal from outer space is received, it will be important to respond promptly. And this is the passage. There is considered debate over how we should react if we detect a signal from an alien civilization. Luckily, there is no urgency about this. The answer is no because the text is saying there is no urgency about it. It's the complete opposite. It was given, but it was the opposite information, and that's why the answer is no. And notice again that they use urgency here and then they use respond promptly here. So it's not the exact same word but the synonym. Another example is the matching type. You need to match the right headings for each paragraph. And again, you have to follow the instructions. If it says write the correct numbers, you need to follow it. This is where I read the paragraph one by one. And every time I read a paragraph, I read it with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my everything, with all my brain cells, because you need to know what is it talking about, what is the main idea of this paragraph. Next is multiple choice questions or sentence completion. Again, I look for keywords from the questions. If there's no keywords, then I have to read the paragraph as fast as you can with a bit of understanding. And you check the questions every time you finish a paragraph. Just to check maybe that question for number 1, it's in that paragraph. So to master the reading test, make sure you print out the sample reading test passages and questions. Go to a quiet room with no distractions. Put your phone on silent but set the timer to an hour and pretend like you're doing the actual test. Again, the best material for this is the Cambridge IELTS books because it will give you the right answers at the end. You can always check. The recommended time for each passage is only 20 minutes. It's a total of 40 items, and if you're hitting a score of 35 and up, you should move on to the next part. If you're still struggling, read articles from professional writers and take note of the words you're not familiar with. Look it up in the dictionary and write down the meaning of each word. For example, in this article, I'm not sure about this word flamboyant, so I go to my notebook and fold it into 2 columns like this, then write down the word on the left and the meaning to the right side of it. I wrote as many words as I can for more chances of winning. Since my brain is not very good with retention, I sometimes go back to it and cover the second column so I can try to guess what's the meaning of that word, and that makes me retain the information. And moving on to the next part, which is the writing test. There are two parts in the writing test. The first one is a 150-word essay explaining a map, illustration, chart, table, or combination. And second is a 250-word essay where you need to write your ideas or opinion about a certain topic, usually a global issue, and you are given 1 hour to finish the whole writing test. It depends on you if you want to start with writing task 2 or you want to start with task 1, but I recommend you start and prioritize your task 2 because task 1 is only 33% of your total writing test score. If you are aiming for a score of 7 and up, it's a big challenge because it's like you need to try to sound like a professional writer. Don't try to impress the reader with your highfalutin or exotic words because they're not impressed with that, especially if you're not very consistent and they would know that you're just, faking it. Instead, try to impress them by answering the question with a clear presentation of your opinion, supporting your ideas with good grammar and sentence construction, correct spelling and punctuation, and using cohesive devices such as this list from IELTS Impact's site. My advice for you guys is instead of working too hard practicing and making essays, I suggest that you make some time to read formal articles first. You can take note of the English words and phrases that you can use on your own essays. And generally, just observe how these formal writers construct their sentences. The site that I use the most is globalissues.org. First, I take note of how the writer starts his article and write it down on a section of my notebook called the introduction. This will give me more options for my essay introduction. How am I gonna open my essay, basically? Then I try to find phrases that will help me with the flow of my essay, such as this, in the meanwhile, because that's a linking word which can help link paragraphs or make a good transition. I write this on my notebook in a section called linking words or transition. Then as I go along with the article, I take note of professionally written phrases that I wouldn't normally write on my own essays, such as this, enabling a cheaper path to industrialization. I write this down on my notebook like this on the right side of the page, and on the left I think about how do I write this in my own words. For example, doing a cheaper way to industrialization. Basically, these two have the same meaning. It's just that one is better than the other. And then as I go along with reading the articles, I collect as many phrases as I could, and I try to retain those formal words by covering the right side of the page like this and try to remember how the professional writer wrote it. It's also best practice to take note of the words that you don't fully understand and write it down on your notebook to improve your comprehension skill, which will help you to get a higher score in your reading test. Also, to avoid using the same word several times, it's best to take note of common words such as good, bad, big, small, and write their synonyms so you can expand your vocabulary. For your writing task 1, you can use the same site, globalissues.org, to read articles that describe tables, illustrations, or maps. Take note of words that you can use with your own essays. And again, just observe how these professional writers do it. Every time you practice writing your essays, try to understand the main concept of the illustration. What is it trying to show you? Or how will you explain what you see to a blind person in a professional written way? The main goal is to describe whatever you see and highlight the main points or any significant trend or changes as shown in the illustration. You can simply start your essay with the graph illustrates or the table shows or any other introduction you can see in sample articles. And this is a photo I got from Woodward English where it shows words that you can use in describing trends in a graph. There are a lot of sample writing test questions and answers online that you can follow, such as this example here in the IELTSlist.com website. I find this website very helpful, so I suggest you read more from this site for more tips and examples. Another wonderful site is the British Council website where you can get some free IELTS practice tests. Please make sure that you comply with the number of words that they are asking for every task. You may not have the luxury to count the number of words during the actual test, but what you can do is print out several copies of the answer sheet and use it to write your essays whenever you practice. The more you count the number of words every after practice, the more you'll know which part of the sheet you have potentially reached the 150 or 250 words, depending on your handwriting. I will include the links in the description below so you can get your copy and print it yourself. And when you're answering your task 2, please remember that there is no right or wrong opinion. The examiner will not judge you whether you agree to the idea or not. They care about how you supported your opinion and if you're able to clearly explain why you agree to it or not. That's why before starting to write, think about your answer. Do you agree to this or not? If you agree, can you support it or can you provide examples? If not, then think about choosing the other answer because maybe you can give more supporting opinions with that. I guess it's better to make an outline first on the question booklet before starting to write so you don't have to erase things if you happen to change your mind. Your speaking test is usually on a different date, and the test center will tell you ahead of time the date and time of your appointment. It would take about 15 minutes or less, and there are 3 parts. First is just the introduction and general questions like about you, home, family, job, or interest. The second part is when you are given a task card that shows a particular topic that you will need to talk about. You will have 1 minute to prepare, and you can make some notes if you want to. Then you will be given 1 to 2 minutes to speak. The examiner may ask you additional questions on the same topic too. Part 3 is discussing about more abstract issues relevant to the topic in the task card. My advice is smile and be confident. Don't try to speak too fast. Practice with a friend or record yourself while trying to answer the possible speaking test questions. The more you record, the more you can evaluate and improve yourself. There are very good tips from this site, IELTS.com, and I highly recommend for you to read. Again, this is in the description down below. I just want to share about my own experience with my IELTS exam. So for my listening and writing, it was okay. It was smooth. That's why I got 8.5 on those parts. Now, when I did the writing test, I prioritized task 2. I forgot the question, but all I can remember is I spent so much time on my introduction. I think it was like 10 minutes and I don't have anything yet on my paper. I had some ideas, but I was really struggling with my introduction because I don't want to use the word nowadays. I was like, oh my god, I can't think of anything I have to use nowadays, but I was still hoping that I could think of something, and so I did, but I wasted like 10 minutes time for just the introduction. When I was thinking about my explanation and supporting ideas, I was like, oh my god, I feel like I'm already redundant. I've talked about this in my previous paragraph and now I'm still talking about the same idea but just different words. So I erased like one full long sentence. I was really in a hurry, so I was like erasing it so much and the table was like wobbly. I feel bad for my seatmate because he's probably distracted with the thing that I was doing, and I only have 10 minutes more and I didn't write anything yet on my task 1. I just wrote anything without thinking anymore, and I think I finished it in 8 minutes because I still had to go back to my writing task 2 to finish my conclusion because I spent 50 minutes for my introduction and the body for my task 2, 50 minutes, and then 8 minutes to do my task 1, and then I still had 2 minutes more to do my conclusion until it was saying time's up, and I was still writing, but luckily it was just like 1 more word or 2 more words remaining, and I just quickly wrote it and then surrender myself because if it's time's up, it's time's up. You're not allowed to write anything anymore. Even though the writing test was finished, I was still shaking. My hands were still shaking because I was thinking about the money that I've spent and I felt like I didn't make it. I felt like I didn't finish. I was feeling hopeless already at that time. And also with my speaking test, I got a score of 7 as well. But before arriving to the test center, I encountered a series of unfortunate events because I live in the province and the test center is in the big city, which is 30 minutes by a plane. But since I am poor, then I had to take a bus for 2 hours and then boat for around 6 hours. That was the cheapest one. I had to travel the day before, but there was a storm, so the boat arrived late in the city. It was delayed, I didn't eat dinner because I was inside the boat already, but the boat didn't have food anymore. And in the morning after, because it's an overnight boat, and I was expecting to arrive at around 6 a.m. in the morning. But instead, I arrived like 11. I didn't have time anymore to freshen up or to eat breakfast even. So I was very not 100% myself at that time. And that's why this is my picture on my IELTS test result. You can see how horrible I look in there. And I was scheduled at 11:30 and I arrived 11:15. There was something wrong with the taxi. So the driver has stopped and fixed the taxi, and it took a lot more of minutes. While I was waiting for the driver, British Council called me saying, "Do you know that you have a speaking test today?" I was like, "Yes, but I'm sorry, I'm running late because I had a typhoon, blah blah blah." So it's good that they understood, and luckily and fortunately they were able to still accommodate me. I was very exhausted, but I still tried to be confident during the speaking. I felt comfortable with the person who was interviewing me or doing the speaking test with me because he was pleasant and he was accommodating. I just had to carry on. After all of the test result, I had to wait for I think 15 days, if I'm not mistaken, for the result. I just woke up on that day where we can check our results online. I went to the website that they've given us. I wasn't really expecting. I was thinking that I didn't pass my speaking and my writing because it was a disaster. But then when I look at my score, I was like, I was so surprised and I was so happy that I really cried so much. I was like, you know, that loud cry that you do. And then my sister heard me from the other room. She actually went to my room and said, "What is going on? What happened?" It was like, she was really worried. I was still on my underwear and crying, and my sister hugging me. And yeah, that's it. And I hope you subscribe to my channel again. I don't know, my next videos would be in Tagalog because I'm tired of speaking in English. I can't really express myself that much when I'm speaking in English. So I think I'll do Tagalog videos with maybe subtitles. So you better watch out, you better not cry, you better subscribe, I'm telling you why. Little Pinay Explorer to town, Little Pinay will make your day, Little Pinay will make you happy. Oh my god, I'm so smart. Bye.